Hey, it's Chris Anthony with you, Streams of Light podcast. This is my second dry run here. We'll call it the pilot number 2. Just wanted to follow up on the gratitude discussion I had back on Thanksgiving Day. And, everyone focuses on Thanksgiving Day. I mean, it's something we all focus on. And we talked about gratitude a little bit, and I kind of came up with an interesting experiment. I thought I would try to think about what I was grateful for every time that I started to have a negative thought. This happens more or less depending on where you're at in your life. So every time I had a thought about a health issue I was having or a situation I didn't like, I went immediately back to what can I be thinking about right now? What am I grateful for? So I started to recount the things that I could be grateful for. Like even if I was thinking about a health challenge I was having, I would start to think of all the other things about my life and my body and whatnot in the health realm that were working good. And so I found a very interesting thing because several times throughout the day, the mind would go to a negative thought. It's not difficult. I think we all have that. We all have the discursive mind, the ego, and all these things can be a challenge at times, especially with what's happened in 2020 and particularly around the holidays. The holidays is always a challenging time, especially if you come from a family situation where you don't have the best memories. So sometimes holidays can be a very difficult time. The mental health profession would be the first to testify that it's a very difficult time of the year. So it's not uncommon. It's not unusual for anyone to have thoughts that go to negativity. And so I'm just like anyone else. And so when these thoughts would come up, I would begin to recount the things I was grateful for. And so as time went on, I realized that something very powerful was happening. I was using my own creative ability, for lack of a better term, my own willpower to shift my very reality. And so that's what I kind of wanted to talk about tonight. I wanted to talk about how wellness, not only physical wellness, but mental wellness is a choice that we make. It's a choice that we make because every little decision we make, not just things we do in the day, but decisions we make on what to think about, how to approach challenges or problems we have. All these little teeny decisions we make all day long as we think about these things add up to who we are and what our life is about. Many people in life aren't aware of the power of the creative force that lies within us, even simply with willpower. I'm not talking about going out and doing miracles. I'm not talking about necessarily going out and feeding the multitudes or healing people. I'm talking about little things that we can do daily in our own life that can create a shift in our reality. Now, the yoga new agey crew would call that how to raise your vibration. And I can't really think of a better way to say it, because when I started to experiment with this pattern in my own life, every time I had a negative thought, switching over to things I could be grateful for. There's always something you can be grateful for. You can look out the window and think, wow, it's a beautiful, sunny, warm day. Or it's snowing, it's almost Christmas and it's snowing, whatever. It depends on how you want to look at it, right? So I realized that it was really like a vibrational change in that sense, because when we're in negativity, when we're thinking about bad things that have happened, or even worse, bad things that might happen. How many of us have thought about bad things that could happen at work or at home or whatever that never came to pass? And think about how much energy we waste thinking about bad things. And so this creative ability we have comes with mind control. to control the mind is not an easy thing. As you know, when you fall asleep, sometimes it feels like you're joining a movie in progress. Have you ever experienced that? You fall asleep at night, and if you wake up all of a sudden, you go, wow, it was weird. It was like this, it was like I went into a movie theater, and there's a lot going on in the human psyche. There's a lot going on in the subconscious realm. And so controlling your mind can be a very challenging thing because there could be so many streams of thought, just like a computer could have many programs running. It could have email going, a web browser, another program, and all these things could be going out simultaneously, doing their own respective duties. So the mind can be very much like that. So simplifying the mind, gaining control over the mind can be a really big challenge, especially I think in this day and age, because we have so many things that are begging for our attention. And if it's not the news or the TV or the media, it's social media, phone calls, texts, and then there's all the regular things like our to-do lists and all the things that, are just normal things that we go about in life and that we must do. So there can be so many streams of thought, almost like a computer. And so what I'm interested in is how can we begin to change those streams? How can we, number one, how can we reduce them? That's a really tough question. I remember when I woke up one time in the middle of the night, so one of my friends had said, I think you're angry at so-and-so. And I said, oh, that's not true at all. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I was having this dream, and it was kind of like, I realized I think I am angry at that person. Sometimes we don't even know how we feel about things deep down inside. So how do we discover that? And then how do we begin to reduce the thought streams that are going on in our being? Now, more recently, I started meditating and practicing all kinds of mindfulness practices. You can do open-eyed walking in on a trail, kind of open-eyed meditation. You can sit and be still and observe your breath. So I started experimenting with meditation quite a while ago, but only took it up more seriously within the last 2 years. And one of the things that the teachers of the East say is that meditation is the most powerful form of mind control that we can experience. And so one of the things that I've noticed in my own life as I've delved into meditation more deeply is that meditation closes the gap between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Now, what do I mean by that? As I was saying before, we can have things going on underneath the hood in our own psyche that we're not even aware of. And so meditation will, as time goes on, reveal to us things that we're thinking and feeling that we might not have been aware of. Now, that can look like a scary thing for some people who've experienced perhaps a lot of trauma or have a lot of issues going on. But in the end, it's a much better situation to know what's going on underneath the hood. And so to close the gap, and that's one thing that meditation does, it closes the gap, it shortens that gap between the conscious and the subconscious mind. There's more, we bring consciousness into that realm that we would consider unconscious. We sort of awaken to who we are and to how we feel about things and so on and so forth. And that begins to help us because once we start to understand, here's the things that I'm concerned about or worrying about, we can start to deal with those things. So meditation will ultimately close the gap between the conscious and the subconscious. And another thing it will do, and this is the amazing thing, and this is when I was practicing spirituality before I began to really take mindfulness seriously, I really began to wonder and even pray. I thought, how can I stop these thoughts from coming? Have you ever thought about that? Especially when you're incessantly thinking about a challenge that's going on in your life, or maybe it went on for quite a while and it could have even been months, if not years before. And so that was a tough question I was dealing with in my own spiritual pursuit and my own spiritual quest, is how can I even stop thoughts from coming? And what I found was that meditation really helped with that, because meditation is not just about relaxing and observing your breath and seeing your breath reduce and seeing your breath slow down and your body begins to relax. It is about that. That's a lot of it. But as that all those things begin to take place. You begin to develop the practice of concentration. And concentration, as you know, and I think in this day and age, it's even more difficult than it's ever been with all the things that we have vying for our attention. Concentration can be a very, very difficult thing to master. But meditation and concentration within meditation is like any other thing. The more you do it, the more you practice it, the more you become good at it. It's like anything else. You do it and you get better and better. So as time has gone on, I've realized that with concentration, with single-mindedness, I can enhance my life greatly and not be torn into many different directions. Okay, so here we are. This is the Streams of Light podcast number 2, really, since I've decided to go live on YouTube for these podcasts. And I do have a call-in number I would like to give out now. And for this call-in number, it will only be good for the live YouTube broadcast. So if you're hearing this rebroadcast on any of the other sites like Apple Podcasts, etc., don't call in because we're not only broadcasting live on YouTube. So the call-ins are only good for YouTube Live, which is right now. And so I'm going to give you this number in a few minutes if you feel like you would like to call in and share with me anything that you want to share about regarding gratitude and how that's possibly changed your life. Or if you'd like to just talk a little bit about meditation or health and wellness or anything along those lines, that would be an opportunity to do that. So I'm going to give out this number now, and sometime in the next 5 minutes, I'll go ahead and start taking any calls. The number is 858-367-3765. So it's 858-367-3765. Now that number, as I said, will not only not be good on the rebroadcast of this podcast, but it won't be good, tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. or anything like that. So it's only good for the live broadcast. So again, I was amazed at what I would call the gratitude experiment that I embarked on since Thanksgiving. I was amazed. I always felt like in my own life, hey, I'm doing pretty good. And I felt like, hey, I'm doing pretty good. And, but I realized when I started practicing the gratitude experiment, I got a call coming in here and I'm just going to put that on hold for just a second while we just finish up this one thought, and then I'll go to the phone. So I was amazed at how much the gratitude experiment impacted me. First of all, I was amazed at, it takes a certain amount of presence to be able to realize I'm having a negative thought. Okay, let's think about what we have to be grateful for. The first thing I noticed was, gosh, I have more negative thoughts in a day than I maybe had previously known. And so that was the first thing I learned. And then the second thing I learned was, wow, I don't need to do this anymore. The minute I start thinking about something that I'm troubled about or whatever, and let's say, you need to deal with a problem. It's one thing to think about it and work out a plan. It's another thing to be rehearsing it, nursing it, and creating disrest, dis-ease, and nothing good in your life. So I was amazed at how often I thought of negative things, and I was amazed at how quickly this turned things around for me and my psyche, and how much better I felt about life. Okay, so I'd like to go to the call here. It looks like I have Victoria calling. Are you there, Victoria? Let's see here. Hang on just a second. First call, so it's kind of a challenge here. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I don't know that, let's see, I don't know that you're going through my correct output thing here. Let me try one more time. Are you there now? Okay. Oh, there we go. How about now? Go ahead and talk.
Hi.
Okay, good. I got you. Okay, good. I had muted it, and okay. So, just so everyone knows, this is my daughter. I figure for the first call, I'd have to test out the equipment and get it going. So, um, lessons learned. Okay, so Victoria, you're calling from Pacific Northwest. Yes.
Yes.
How's the weather? How's the weather up there?
It was pretty clear today, but we had a recently rainy week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it was about 72 degrees here in Southern California and sunny, so I'm not complaining. And I'm sure you've had some decent sunny days, even if it's not been as warm.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so how's what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? What would you like to talk about?
I guess I feel similarly to you. The best thing I can do when I notice a harmful thought coming into my mind is to stop it, focus on something different, or just try to stop it and not let it continue, because the more you let it continue, the more you suffer basically, and it doesn't need to be that way. Yeah, there might be things that are stressful or hard in life, but there's usually some type of bright side or something that some good that we can take from it. Either it is a lesson or, um, I don't know, just that's my perspective, but
I,
not sure if everyone will feel the same way about
no,
that as me.
so let's see. So you're saying that you actually have negative thoughts throughout the day.
Yeah.
But you're so young and your life is so bright and the outlook is so good. I guess I know I'm kind of being funny here. I'm joking, but it just seems like it doesn't matter who you are or what your
No.
situation is. I mean, the thing that amazes me is so many people think, well, if I could just get, this job or this house or whatever, then everything would be okay. But sometimes when you look at people who have everything they've ever wanted and they've
Yeah,
had a lot of success, they can be the most miserable of people.
definitely.
So it's crazy to me to think that, we all think, it's almost like this delusion. We keep thinking that, well, if I get this, then everything will be all right. But I guess um, as we are moving forward, and I'm going to refer to the Cottage Fairy in just a minute because both of you and I
Uh,
we love her YouTube channel, and she seems to be one of those people who is talking about cultivating this not only a state of gratitude, but
inner peace.
inner peace. And there was another thing. It was like she doesn't have much, but she was talking about cultivating. I had notes on it. Cultivating um, sort of looking for the word, going blank here, but cultivating this
Happiness.
happiness, but also just having it's like this feeling of I have
Contentment.
contentment and I have riches, not not so much money, but cultivating this feeling of I have so much.
Yeah, it's like an attitude of knowing that, like, we're alive and we should be thankful and grateful that we even are alive,
Right,
and we have a house or, roof over our heads, whatnot. The
right,
basic essentials. What else could you really need? You need to be happy within yourself and not be constantly looking for other sources of like stimulation to keep you going, to keep you entertained, and appreciate what we have and not focus on what we don't, basically.
right, right. So it's yeah, it's amazing to me that it doesn't really matter where we're at in our life. We're always going to have that challenge of finding contentment. And I think one of the reasons why you and I love to watch the Cottage Fair, you know what I think I might do is I might put after I'm done with this YouTube live podcast, I think I'm going to put a link to her channel down in the um, down below in the notes section because I want people to be able to click on her channel and maybe go out and watch a video or two. And I think, and this is what I wanted to ask you about, Victoria. I think that it's caught more than it's taught. Don't you feel like that? Because when you go to her channel and you watch the videos, you kind of feel good. it's this kind of a good feeling that comes over you. It's not so
Yeah.
much what she's telling you that, you know, she learned and you need to do, as much as it is you just kind of tune into her channel and you kind of like see the video clips and what she's doing and you hear her voice, and you just kind of feel peaceful.
It's her presence.
Yeah.
She's so calming, and she like inspires you to want to, leave her video living a similar life, not necessarily out in the middle of the country like her necessarily, but just the similar state of mind and principles behind her life and like what she's doing every day, waking up, you know, till you go to bed, basically.
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting, and that's the beautiful thing. And I'm glad we're talking about the cottage fairy, and we're kind of talking about, you know, gratitude and the whole thing, because I feel like, you know, I mentioned before, it's kind of sounds new agey, but you know, the term that people sometimes use is they talk about, you know, raising your vibrational level, and that sounds kind of hokey and all that. But the truth is when you're around someone like the cottage fairy, or someone who has just sort of worked on that in their own life, they carry that into the room with them. And then conversely, when someone is sort of not like that and is more troubled, you can feel that too. And
Yeah, totally.
yeah, and you know, we're all the same. We want to, for the most part, we want to be around people that have that good vibe and that good feeling,
Yeah.
and they're looking at things from a positive perspective, because I've always felt like perception is like 98% of life. I mean, how you perceive things is, in a very real way, how you create your own reality, because two people could be going through the identical process in life, and one person could be thinking, woe is me, I'd rather be dead, this is terrible, my life is miserable. And the other person could still be in a completely different place and a better place.
Yeah, that's totally true.
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad that we had a chance here to test out the call-in feature.
Yeah.
It sounds very good. Now, before I let you go, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? You don't have to. I mean, I'm just curious. Did we cover everything, or was there anything? Oh, well, now one thing that we didn't really talk about was, and that we could just mention briefly before I let you go, is this whole package of wellness, not only mental wellness. I really feel like the physical wellness thing feeds into the mental wellness. I don't know if you thought about that much.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. From my own perspective, the better I take care of my body physically, whether that be I'm eating, right, drinking juices, um, exercising, going on walks, getting fresh air, the more I feel like I do that, the better my mind would be mentally. Um, I'm not going to be thinking as negatively about whatever's going on in life, and you're just focused on, it's like you're on like a constant high of being like, healthy, and you feel good, and it's like a high feeling of like, nothing's going to bring you down. And I think overall, how you treat your body physically, like I said, eating or exercise, you're definitely going to reap the rewards with the mental side, and have a lot of, just be more calm in general. It goes both ways too. By taking care of your mental health also helps you motivate it also helps motivate you to take care of your physical health, which in turn, you're just gonna keep going and do it. It's not gonna be like one of those fad diets or, you
Right.
know, things you try to do and then doesn't work out. You'd have to be mentally like prepared and like ready for it as well. But yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think it's kind of a two-way street. They're connected. I think if you're, you know, eating poorly, for example, we could talk about many things in the physical realm, whether it be diet and
Hmm.
exercise, and like you said, sunshine, fresh air. But if, like, for example, if you're eating poorly, and I noticed this in my own life, so if I eat poorly, then a lot of times my body is in distress. And if my body's in distress, then it affects my mind. and it affects all these other things. And sometimes I don't feel like maybe getting out and getting the exercise of the sunshine. So it's definitely a two-way street. I love the fact that this all builds together. So when you've begun to focus on, having that awareness, that mindfulness of your mind and where the mind is going, and then when the negative thoughts come, focusing on gratitude. I love how this whole thing about eating right and exercising, getting the sunshine, the fresh air, drinking the juices and all that, it really does build. When you make an effort to make your life better and kind of embrace these practices, you start to feel momentum. And when you feel that momentum, it just feels good. It just feels so good to treat your body well. And a body that's well treated just enjoys all of life and then can focus on other people. I really feel like if we do this, then I think it's hard to give back in social situations or to life when we're being snagged by the mental challenges or the physical challenges. It's really hard to give back if we don't have any gas left in the tank.
Yeah. I don't know if this is what you meant, but what came to my mind when you said that last part was that how it seems like most of the country, the United States, I don't know how it is in other countries, but it seems like a lot of the people that live here are not really focused on physical health and wellness, and that's just unfortunate. But it seems like the attitude amongst people is to kind of like eat, party, drink, do whatever you want, and they don't really seem to care too much about their bodies. And
Yeah.
it really shows when you're talking to someone that you don't know, when you're meeting a stranger. I've been in so many situations where I feel like I just don't really fit in with a certain personality or
Right.
like mindset as other people in the world. But
Right.
that's just what I notice when I'm talking to people. I just think like people are so out of touch from like taking care of their bodies and being physically, mentally aware of what's going on. So
yeah, let's face it. I think, in all fairness, I think a lot of it is, and I think we've all done it in our life to some degree or another. I know I did for a while, but I think the way that people treat themselves sometimes is like, it's like self-medicating. I think a lot of people are very depressed. And one of the reasons why I wanted to restart this podcast after not having have done this podcast for really a couple of years is I felt like our country, not that our country's going down the tubes. It's not like I'm thinking that, but I have to say that I was starting to get very concerned because, and I decided on this podcast, it was going to be all about like positivity, gratitude, and all these things. But I did feel like, I decided that I didn't want to talk about politics or like go into depth and like COVID and things that, you get all this stuff in the news. And I wanted this podcast, and this is part of the mission statement. I want this podcast to not only be about focusing on the positive things. I want to read news articles that are positive. I want to focus on good things. It's not like I felt like our country's going down the tubes, but I have to say that I have had a very serious concern because of the focus, the polarization that's in the news media, for example, and polarizing Americans to one side or the other. Not a lot of middle ground. Not a lot of graciousness, not a lot of kindness, a lot of it's my way or the highway kind of thing. And so this is almost like, it's like a disease. It kind of has run rampant a little bit. And I think it's time, and this is a call going out to anyone listening to this podcast. And by the way, if you're enjoying what we're talking about, I would like to ask you, just subscribe so you know next time we're going live. And I'd love to have people chime in. But what I want people to think about is the people who've been silent. And I think there's a majority, it's like a silent majority. For the people who've been silent and have watched the polarization of our country, the negativity, the terrible focus on bad things all the time, it's always bad, bad, bad. I really feel like we need to stand up and say, enough is enough. Let's start looking at the good things in life. Like you said, it's a nice day outside, or I'm not, there are plenty of people that are struggling with homelessness, but hey, we can go out and feed people. We could go out and do things. So I want this podcast to be about focusing on the positive. So I'm glad that you called. I'm thankful that you helped me run through
yeah,
my rigorous testing. It sounds pretty good. This is a direct This is a really nice direct line to you through just a straight data connection. I think it sounds really good. So,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Thanks for having me.
yeah. Thanks for calling, and you're gonna have to call back again until I get a lot of followers and a lot of calls.
Anytime.
Okay. Bye.
All right. Bye. Thanks.
Okay, so that's Victoria, and thankful that she called. I'm going to give the number one more time, and if anyone's listening and would like to call in, you could call me at 858-367-3765 to get on the Streams of Light podcast with Chris Anthony, and just tell me what you're thinking about anything we've talked about, be it gratitude or wellness and health and things of that nature. So, I did want to, for just a brief moment, I wanted to look at a couple other things that I had on my list to talk about. And one of the things that came to me this morning, and one of the things I do in the morning, and this is something that you can think about as far as positivity and doing things that are just kind of cool and fun, and how to kind of like get yourself out of that place of dread, doom, and gloom. One thing I like to do in the mornings is, it's something I learned when I was a kid, and, just put on some positive music. I mean, that's a good way to start the day, and everyone has different musical tastes. So what one person thinks, may be different than the other, but I think the most important thing is to put on some music or something that makes you feel good, and something that can kind of play in the background when you're doing your morning routine or doing things around the house. And so I did that this morning, as I usually do. And I kind of went off on a little, sometimes I don't necessarily listen to music that I would listen to every morning or every day, but sometimes I go down, what's the term? It's memory lane, I guess would be one way to say it. So I went for a walk down memory lane, and something popped up on my YouTube video, and it was a David Bowie song. And I was listening to, I believe he was singing Changes. I love that song. And also, by the way, I also heard a Doors song, and I was amazed at, Jim Morrison. So sometimes it's really neat just to like take a walk down memory lane and think about, the era that was going on and what people stood for and so on and so forth. But as I was listening to this line that David Bowie sang in Changes, it's kind of, I meant to print it out and maybe read you some of the song like it was a poem, and I didn't get around to that because I was scrambling to kind of get all my new equipment lined up and working right. But as I listened to David Bowie, I thought, such an interesting thing. When I think about music that was like in the 60s and 70s in particular, I think of some of the sacred texts that I've read throughout my life. I've studied a lot of sacred texts, and there's a term when you read the sacred text, and one of the terms is poets, priests, and prophets. And so these are the people that like contribute to society, right? So these are the people who will write things like, for example, King David. He was a king, but he was also a poet, and he was a songwriter. And so when I was listening to this David Bowie song, I was like, listening to a couple of lines, I thought, wow, that is so true. And what it made me think about was, a lot of people who are involved in spirituality, particularly organized religions. And when I say that, I mean organized religions that are a little more exclusive, not so inclusive. They really feel like the only way to get something for the day or some sort of truth is, here or there in their prescribed way. But I was realizing, as I was listening to David Bowie, I was realizing, man, it's like these guys in the 60s and 70s, they wrote these songs like Cats in the Cradle and things like that. And you listen to these things, and if you really consider the words and the meaning behind, these songs, you realize, wow, this guy was like a prophet. I mean, he spoke of, these things that have so much depth and so much truth to him. So I guess what I wanted to say by bringing that out is I wanted to point out that if you have a hunger to, sort of understand more, to come to an internal peace in your own life, so on and so forth, there are things everywhere all around you. I don't care where you go. You could turn on the radio, just a local radio station, and hear one of these songs. Or I know we're kind of on, more of a lockdown mode right now, but you can go to a coffee shop, when all that, stuff is happening like it normally is, and have a conversation with someone. Everywhere you go, there's going to be life presenting itself to you. When I look at the way life is, I think, man, life is relentless. It's like this furious love that will never quit. And if you have your headlights on, so to speak, if your mind is open and your heart is willing, you're going to get all kinds of stuff. And so you don't need to go very far. You don't have to get on a boat or on a plane and go to some mountaintop to have a surreal experience. Now, you can do that, and I'm not saying you shouldn't, and you can have those surreal experiences on the mountaintop. But many of the sages who have studied and just sought after the spiritual path, many of them will testify the same thing. You don't need to go to a mountaintop, for example, to find God. That whatever you're looking for is right before you. And all the spiritual teachings in all the traditions say that. And so it's really beautiful, because I look at, so some of you may be thinking, well, I'm not really a spiritual seeker. I don't like religion, or I'm not really, that's not my thing. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be looking for God, so to speak, but you could be looking for love, which I would say is God, but you could be looking for success, health and wellness, or peace. And what I'm saying is, I believe that no matter what you're looking for, particularly when it's those good things that I just mentioned, that life is relentless in its pursuit for you and for me. And so that's one of the reasons why I've taken up the path of mindfulness, the path of truth seeking, and so on and so forth, because I feel like that's how we're all here. We're not going anywhere for a while. I mean, some of us are, but for the most part, we're here. And while we're here, we might as well make it fun, right? I mean, fun in a healthy way. We might as well find, if we're going to be here in this body and in this life, in this world where there's both sun and cold, where there's, beaches, but there's also rain and storms. If we're going to be here, we might as well make the best of it. And so that's what I've been focusing on, is how can I be the best possible iteration of the plan, for the blueprint for my life? How can I be the best possible version of myself? Have you ever come into contact with someone who seems to have blossomed into who they are as a human being? It's contagious. It's electric. You want to be around people like that. You feel good when you're around them. Everything it's kind of like we touched on before, when people carry that gratitude. It's just like you just want to be around someone like that. And when someone has come into their own, it's contagious. It kind of makes you realize, like, this is what life is meant to be. And so I guess that's one thing I want to leave us all with to think about. I'll leave you with this thought, and this is one of my favorite stories. It comes from the great spiritual teacher, one of the greatest spiritual teachers of our time, Eckhart Tolle, who talked about, in his book, The Power of Now, he talked about in the introduction a beggar who was sitting in as many beggars do, he's sitting in a square. I don't know, like if you've ever, like Europe would be a good example. If you go through Europe, and it doesn't matter what country you're in, if you're in Italy or Spain or whatever, there's usually these, the center parts where there's kind of, a monument or whatever, and people gather. And a lot of times there's people that are, in need of food or whatever. And so in this story, Eckhart tells a story about a man who kind of walked into the center of the square or whatever, and there's this guy sitting there, and he was a beggar. And he was sort of sitting on this old wood box or whatever it was. And he asked the guy, hey, can you help me? Can you help me? And the guy who he asked was standing there, and he said, hey, what are you sitting on there? Oh, I've just been here forever. This is nothing. It's just, can you help me out? Can you give me some food or money? Well, but what's inside? Well, the guy was like, I don't know what's inside there. Well, this story is a parable, and it's a beautiful parable, because as the story goes on, the beggar realizes that the box he was sitting on was full of what? It was full of jewels and wealth and riches. And that is a parable of life. See, if we're focused on just what the news is saying or just the negative things about life, we miss the jewels and the riches that have been planted within. And so it's a beautiful story. It's something I wanted to leave everyone with. And if you've enjoyed this little podcast, feel free to subscribe. And I would love to have you receive an alert next time we go live. And we're going to do some, I just want to give you a little roadmap of where we're going now that I'm kind of getting all my equipment in order and things are set up here. We're going in a direction of interviews. Sometime in the next couple weeks, we're going to have one of my friends, Steph Diane, on. She's going to be on. She's a person who writes on Quora, the website, and she's done pretty well with her views. She's got over 1 million views in her writing. So she's a successful writer there and just a regular person, great person. We have a lot of good conversations. So she's going to be on. I've got a guy in San Diego, North County who had a near-death experience and has learned a lot of things along the way in life. And so he's going to be on as well. And I have a couple of other ideas that I'm brewing in the background, so I'm working on those. So we're going to start shifting gears and going into interview mode. Oh, I have another person that has sort of given me a verbal okay to be on, and that's Laura Love, who is a yoga instructor in Orange County. And she was sharing with me her story about what she was doing in her life and how she just decided to do some things and make some changes and how it just changed her whole life. And I thought, wow, that was really powerful. And I asked her, I said, hey, would you be willing to share that on my podcast? And she said, yes. So we're going to have her on once I get things dialed in a little bit more. And so that's what's to come in the future. In the meantime, I'm just going to jump on here and keep it going. And so appreciate you guys checking in. Appreciate Victoria calling in. I'm hoping that I'm going to see you guys again sometime in the next few days. Thanks for tuning in. The Streams of Light podcast. I'm Chris Anthony.